Welcome back to Season 12 of Limited Supply, the only commerce podcast with unfiltered and refreshingly hot takes. I'm your host, Nick Sharma, and when I'm not recording, I'm behind the scenes scaling your favorite celebrity and consumer brands. Let's start talking all things direct-to-consumer. I'm going to tell you about a software that my agency, Sharma Brands, uses with our fastest scaling brands. Historically, last-click advertising channels, think Facebook, Google, or TikTok, they take too much credit for what they do. As a result, it's reduced confidence for brands to effectively scale their upper funnel strategies, which puts them in a pickle of higher CPAs. A few years ago, without Prescient, I would have said there's no real way to track what channels like YouTube, TV, or even newcomers like AppLovin are doing. But with Prescient, you can now look at daily, multi-channel forecasting and optimize your paid media without any bias. Prescient allows you to see the halo effect that is usually unrecognized with top-of-funnel channels and allows you to measure those down to the campaign level. See the impact your upper-funnel media really has on e-commerce, Amazon, and even retail stores. Plus, once you go live, since it's not a pixel-based platform, you'll have data and results populating within a week. Try it out and go to prescientai.com/limited to learn more. All right, Aaron, you are live on Limited Supply. Welcome to the podcast officially. It's weird because we've been friends, so it's weird to say that.
Dude, I'm so honored to be here. This is like goals being realized right now. So pretty stoked to be here.
Honored to have you too, brother. All right. Well, first off, I think a lot of people who are listening to this probably know about BRÉZ because I've talked about it a few times. But could you just give us a quick background on yourself as if you were bragging or your parents were bragging about you? Just give a quick highlight reel of just your career so we have some context going in, because I think your context is really important to BRÉZ and the way that BRÉZ was built.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so just maybe a couple sentences on BRÉZ today. So BRÉZ is a feel-good social tonic brand. So we make a variety of feel-good drinks. We're most known for our original drink, which is a microdose cannabis and mushroom-infused social tonic. We use low-dose THC, CBD, and lion's mane mushroom to create this happy, euphoric feeling that you feel within minutes of drinking and lasts for about an hour to an hour and a half. So very comparable to alcohol. We launched the brand a couple of years ago, and it blew up, turned into one of the fastest growing beverages of the country, if not the fastest growing beverage in the country. And it's been a whirlwind. But to back that up on myself personally, I've been in e-commerce since I was really young. I started at 13, actually, back on MySpace and Big Cartel back then. I did t-shirts where I would like design them in Photoshop, and then I would send them off to the printer and get the shirts, and then I'd sponsor bands on MySpace and drive sales to my Big Cartel store. So I've been in the game for a while there, but I really cut my teeth with a brand called Monk. It was a portable aromatherapy diffuser. We essentially took the nicotine and tobacco out of e-cigarettes. We added essential oils, and then you could feel the way you want through these different blends of therapeutic air, which were essentially essential oil pens. We scaled that to 15 million a year, from 0 to 15 million a year in 2 years. And it was one of the fastest growing companies in America 2 years in a row. This is before D2C brands really did that type of revenue online. And so that was pretty exciting. I was the CMO there, and I thought I owned a piece of the company, but I didn't really know how to dot my I's and cross my T's. And so I got pushed out, and I kind of fell in hard times. Didn't really know which way was up, and I was really kind of confused. And I thought I was at this place, and I ended up at this other place. And so I did that for a little bit. I started a few other direct-to-consumer brands after that, but I didn't have very much capital, so none of them really took off. And then in 2018, they passed the Farm Bill in the U.S., and the Farm Bill essentially classified a variety of cannabis as hemp. So it's cannabis sativa below 0.3%. It's called hemp. And people started extracting CBD from hemp. So I started a CBD brand in 2018. And it did pretty well initially. And I tried to run Facebook ads on it, just similar to how I had all the success with Monk and these others in the past. But when I tried to do it, I kept getting shut down every which way possible. That startup kind of fell apart, but I realized that this problem of advertising CBD and hemp products was a pretty big problem. And kind of like Elon Musk says, is you get paid in the proportionately to the problems that you solve. I realized that if I solved this problem and did so with an agency, that it would be super valuable. So I spent a lot of time and energy working on that. Eventually cracked the code on how to advertise CBD and hemp products on Facebook and Instagram and Google and Twitter and some of these others. And that's when I started Lucid. Lucid, my ads agency, turned into the largest cannabis social advertising agency in about 5 years from there in that time frame. So So I was running that for quite a while, and it was doing really well. And I was kind of seeing where the market was going, and I realized, people were super excited about CBD, and that kind of fell off because they weren't really getting that light cannabis buzz that a lot of people were looking for through CBD. So this is where kind of like the Delta 8 movement started happening. And I kind of just watched that, and then people realized that you could pull Delta 9 THC from hemp and put it into finished products as long as it was below a certain threshold, 0.3%. And that it was legal. So I saw that happening, and I had a couple of brands come to me and like, "Hey, you think you could advertise this?" And I thought, "Yeah, I think we could." And it was really successful really quickly. Shortly thereafter, the guys at Can came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to put Delta 9 THC in our products and try to sell them. Do you think you can help us advertise?" And I tried their products, and I helped them advertise. I realized that this is fundamentally the future of drinking. But it was still a little too relaxing for me. I still found myself drinking one, and I was kind of like happy in the corner, but I wasn't really active. I'm like, okay, if this was only a little bit more active, if this was a little bit more exciting, because, even though alcohol is a depressant, when you start drinking it, you get this kind of like dopamine excited feeling from it. So it kind of feels like an energetic buzz. So anyway, long story short, I was like, okay, this is how I want to re-enter into the direct-to-consumer world. This is how I want to participate in cannabis. And so I started formulating a beverage. I met some really cool people at a cannabis and psychedelic convention in Miami, and they had some really unique ingredients like this nano emulsified lion's mane that created this all the benefits of lion's mane, but it gave it to you in this very like instantly bioavailable rush type feeling. So we started formulating a beverage, and a few months later, I launched that beverage on 4/20 of 23, and it just took off, man. It's been since then. It's been just like one wild ride month after month, and it's been really, really exciting. So that's kind of a little bit of the background. So been in e-commerce and direct to consumer for a long time, and then cannabis, and then really saw this kind of just perfect opportunity to lean in and did that.
And just for context, because you've shared this on Twitter, but what was your last year's revenue and what are you projecting for this year, just so people understand the scale here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched it on 4/20 of 23. In our first 8 months of business, so from 4/20 to January 1st of 24, we did about 1.25 million. So it was good, fast scaling for a new brand. Nothing crazy, but pretty quickly. But then from January 1st, 24 to January 1st, 25, we did about 28.9 million. So huge scale from there. I think that's like a 19x scale year over year. It moved about I think about 9 million cans in 2024, which was pretty wild. And then just this last quarter, we did about 12 million, which is pretty exciting. So pacing for somewhere between like 50 and 70 for the year of 25.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like you'll be closer to the 70 because the brand's going to get bigger before Q4.
I think so too. I mean, bigger before Q4. It's like, we started as this like microdose cannabis and mushrooms. So we put the THC in the social tonic and created, we're part of this big movement of creating this new way of drinking. But, I think our perspective is a little bit bigger on how this plays out. I don't think that people are so much looking for a THC cocktail. I think people are looking for drinks that help you feel good in ways that are good for you, or at least not harmful for you. And so we expanded last year into a non-infused product that has cacao, lion's mane, black seed, L-theanine, to create a similar social uplifting buzz, but without the THC. And we're continuing to lean into that. So my expectation is, by the end of this year, that we have a full range of products, both infused and non-infused. And I think the non-infused are going to scale really aggressively and effectively in traditional retail and grocery. And then the infused will be where wine and liquor and beer live for the most part. So, honestly, dude, I did not know what I was getting into fully. Like I knew personally, like, that this is the product that I wanted. I used to drink a lot, and I don't drink anymore at all. And this kind of filled that hole that was left, and that space that was left by not drinking alcohol. And and that was exciting. And intuitively, I felt like that was a big problem to solve for not necessarily myself, but whatever part of myself was the same part of everyone else that had that similar desire or affinity. Anyway, long story short, like if I would have known how challenging beverage was, I don't know if I would have ever got into it. But thank God I didn't, because we blew through probably the most challenging aspect of bev. And now that we're at this stage, it's rare that beverages get this big and don't get massively bigger after. Like this is that first jump to kind of where we are today is really the hardest part of it, I would say. And then from there, the nice thing about bev is it's such an old industry that all the infrastructure is already built, and it's been built for the last 100 years. There's distributors in each state. There's trucks that are built for it. The retail shelves are built to distribute it. So I'm really excited to see where it goes. I have a feeling that we're going to be less and less known as this cannabis brand and more known as this feel good tonic brand.
Yeah. You keep saying feel good tonic, and you don't really say like weed drink or cannabis drink or THC drink. And like it reminds me a lot of Jolie in the sense that they never call themselves a showerhead. Another thing is also BRÉZ has such a distinct foundational visual and also just brand identity and aura. All of this feels very like planned out and intentional. Like, can you speak a little bit about how there's building the product, which is a great product. Then there's the performance marketing, which is, what you're really good at. But the hardest part that I think most people overlook, and especially I would say even coming from your background of operating a brand on the marketing side, like being really good on the customer acquisition side, or even somebody who's really good on the product side, a lot of people still miss that like foundational brand piece, which I think then enables everything you do on the performance side going forward. Can you just talk a little bit about what your process was around that? Or was there things that you did differently? Were there, because you've been on the performance side for so long, were there things that you were picking up as nuggets along the way that you said, all right, when we launch BRÉZ, we're going to do it this way? And just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a few things. Well, let me start with like, what is brand, right? Like what is, and I'd be just adding to the conversation of mini greats before us. And I'm sure you have your own opinion, but I think of it really simply, like brand is a capsule for meaning, and whatever you do as the brand defines the brand. Like that's kind of what it is in as simple way as possible. So, so I think of that very holistically. I think like, what colors are we choosing? What can are we looking for? What buzz are we creating? Who's involved in the company? Who do we want to be our early supporters? Who are our customers? Like I think very intentionally of like every aspect of what we do as making a contribution to who and what the brand is. So at top level, there's that. Now on the more business side, like what makes a business successful? I think it comes down to two things generally, which is innovation and distribution. Like you have to have really strong innovation. Like you have to make something that people actually want. And that's typically not what's available in the market today. It's usually some permutation, some of evolution or iteration of it. So you gotta have really good innovation. But if you have really great innovation, one of the best products in the world, I mean, and you're not able to distribute it, it really doesn't matter. And so I think that's the other aspect. You have to have really strong distribution. You have to have a means of getting your product to people. And ideally you have a competitive advantage in that. And if you have distribution without the innovation, you can sell something once and they'll never buy it again. So you really have to kind of like pair those two things together. And I think that again, how you do each of those individually ties into who and what the brand is. So more on the technical side of it, like because I have all this history in e-com and I've been building in e-com for the last 18 years and really intentionally for the last decade, I kind of knew what it took to make a brand successful in e-commerce today. And that's like high unit economics is probably the high AOV. Like that's probably the number one most important. The thing is like ad costs are just continuing to go up. It costs more and more to buy a customer. And to riff off of a quote by an OG in the space, Ryan Dice, he always used to say, he who can pay most per customer wins, and I think there's fundamental truth to that. It's like, you have to be able to participate in the auction and bid high and be able to convert to that customer as long-term value. So before even really knowing the product or even knowing much about Beverage, I knew that we had to build an e-commerce system, machine that would support a high AOV, that would be subscription first right out of the gate, that would have a product that has stickiness to convert to a high LTV, and it needed to be really simple and lean. We had like one homepage and one product page for like the first year of the business, and still would probably have a total of 5 or 6 pages overall. Like I try to keep it super lean. I also knew that like when you're scaling this fast, because it's not my first rodeo scaling so quickly, you have to build something that you can rebuild quickly. Like, it takes different things at every different stage of the business. So I built BRÉZ to be this very lean, very aerodynamic, very focused on the fundamentals e-commerce system, e-commerce tech company really is what it was. And then I placed the Beverage in there. And the Beverage being so innovative, I could command prices and build a quality product that used more expensive ingredients and then command prices that support it because it's such a unique thing. It's like what do you pay for a can of mushrooms and cannabis? I don't know. There's not really a preconceived notion of what that looks like. So I built that system to support that fundamentally, and then be able to do things that didn't scale, then rebuild it quickly so we could get to new and higher degrees. So so those were like all inputs. It's like I took all this experience that I had to kind of like really craft a machine that I know could stand the test of scaling, and manifest into its better variation over time. So that was kind of like the more of like the thought process I went into it. I think I was, you can have like the best ideas, you can have the best brand, you have a great product, but there's also like a timing component of it. Like, what's actually happening in the market? And the reality is like, whether it's due to the interconnected of technology or social media, or whether it's biofeedback with our wearables, people are becoming more conscious, whether that's, and often they're more health conscious, and so I think culturally, people have been pulling back from alcohol, starting with the younger generations, but really applying to everyone. People are becoming a little bit more aware of how it impacts them, how that night out might not really be worth it the same way they thought it was in the past. And so I think we came in at a very good moment. And again, I think that was because of like just awareness of my own existence, like, and whatever part of me was part of everyone in that way. So I think we timed the market really well. And I think direct consumer allowed us to penetrate to a large portion of people quickly, for a beverage company to meet the market where it was at in that moment, and then ride that wave from there and continue to generate that wave even from now.
I've always thought too in beverage, kind of like what Ryan said, but I've always thought that, in retail stores, it's a game of who has the most shelf space. There's no other game when it comes to retail. It's just about, how many square feet of shelf space you have. On the internet, it's about who's the best at bringing you to your virtual shelf. And I think that's like, I remember working at Hint and thinking these other companies have zero shot against what we're doing, because they don't know how to construct that digital aisle or that virtual aisle to bring people to.
Totally, dude. Well, and you see it all the time. It's just like, you see it in CPG. You see it in like CPG wellness, like in CPG supplements. All these, like, they understand D2C and the role it plays in retail, but you don't see that in beverage. And you especially don't see it in alcoholic beverages. Alcoholic beverages, most of them can't really market and advertise online due to the legislation that exists around it. Some kind of found their way through that, like the wine clubs, like Wink and some of these others. But it's pretty sticky. And then, like a Hint or some of these others, it's like, the liquid's so heavy that it doesn't really make sense to ship it. And so it's really hard to justify the flywheel of ad spend and revenue whenever the product costs so much to ship. It's just kind of so knowing all of that, it's like I built the system to be like supportive of it, regardless, even just like little things, like we pass on the shipping cost to customers still to this day, if it's not $100, and it's like that one move negates a huge loss to the business that allows us to do something in beverage that I don't think has really ever been done before.
A few years ago, without Prescient, I would have said there's no real way to track what channels like YouTube, TV, or even newcomers like AppLovin are doing. But with Prescient, you can now look at daily omni-channel forecasting and optimize your paid media without any bias. Today, brands like Portland Leather, Sattva, Jones Road, Hexclad, and so many more of our clients use Prescient to understand what these top-of-funnel channels actually do to impact their sales in retail, Amazon, and their DTC site. Last-click channels have taken too much credit for far too long and reduced confidence in upper-funnel channels. Prescient allows you to see the halo effect that is usually unrecognized with top-of-funnel channels and allows you to measure those down to the campaign level. See the impact of upper funnel on your revenue, ROAS, and new customers today by going to prescientai.com/limited to learn more. That's prescientai.com/limited. Yeah, I think what BRÉZ does really well is, a lot of people when you think about like optimizing conversion rate or building a better funnel, it's all about, or it's not all about, but a lot of people try to go the route of, okay, how do we get them to buy faster? Like, how do we just get them to checkout? Do we put a timer? Do we put a discount? Do we apply, offers? And you guys took a different approach, which was actually like, our product's really fucking good. Let's educate people why they should be paying more. And I think BRÉZ did a really good job of that. But also speaking to your point just now about like the cost of the unit economics, that was one thing we discovered at Hint. When I got there, we used to sell this $15 variety pack that would cost us $12 in COGS and $8 to ship. And then we learned that we could sell, not 12. I think it was $4 in COGS and 8 to ship. Then you'd sell for 15. Then you still pay Facebook on top of that, plus what percentage of customer service or returns. And then we switched the offer to be 3 cases. It's still the same offer today. 3 cases for $36. That becomes $20 in COGS. The shipping actually stayed the same up to 3 cases. So everything's optimized for 3s. But how have you taken all these learnings around beverage unit economics and created the intro offer that you guys go for today? And then also you can maybe lean into how you did that per channel, because I think another thing BRÉZ did was you guys were you're very you're first to new channels, AppLovin, TikTok Shop, even as a cannabis product showing up at certain activations and events IRL. I'd love to know a little bit about your channel strategy and just how you think about tapping into new channels before any of your competitors can even get their foot in those doors.
Yeah, great question. Well, so a couple things. We're more sophisticated in many ways than people think, and we're less sophisticated in many ways than people think. It's like the more sophisticated is we have a really great product. We're making innovative ways to bring that product to market through the internet, through direct to consumer, building a business that supports that. But less sophisticated ways of we have one funnel that runs the majority of everything. In just the last 3 months, have we developed new intro offers and new funnels to kind of really support that. And, just kind of quick side quest on that is why? Something I've learned, especially at BRÉZ, is when you have a great product, when you really have a great product that times the market well, marketing becomes just an additional layer on top. It's almost unnecessary, which is funny coming from a guy who spent a lot of his life marketing shit. It's it's funny how when you really dial in those other more fundamental first principle components, a lot of that velocity is inherent. People love the product. And when if I give you a drink and you love it, it doesn't take much encouragement for you to go share that with your friends. So there's this inherent viral network effect built into just it being good, and people want to share that. So I think there's that. So then how do we go about it though? I'm always thinking, one of the things my first lessons in direct to consumer is you don't want to be overly dependent on Meta too long. And there's a balance there. At the beginning stages, you don't want to diversify too quickly where you're diluting your focus and your effort and you're not able to do anything well. So initially we were really hyper focused on Meta and really succeeding there. But at some point you got to then quickly divest and look for new channels that you can drive revenue from to start having a little bit more of a balanced and fortified structure for long-term growth and scale. And so we had the cannabis line first, and then I thought, okay, we need to have a non-infused line that will allow us to sell this product in places where we can't sell cannabis products. Most obviously, Amazon. There's a ton of traffic going through Amazon, and I wanted to have my products available on Amazon, but I couldn't get the THC products on there. So we did the non-infused that allowed us to get on Amazon. It also started to allow us to get in traditional retail channels that you couldn't get into otherwise. Bigger groceries, they weren't ready to carry THC maybe, but they were ready to carry a feel-good adaptogenic tonic. So that happened. Also, the first TikTok wave, I saw a TikTok shop happen, and I just realized man, TikTok is literally going to convert all of their users into affiliates. And that's the wildest thing to happen in social media for a long time. So I was aware of that early on. At the same time, I was preparing it for Amazon. I thought, okay, let's lean into TikTok. So we did, and we caught that first wave, and it became a viral product on TikTok. We became the #1 TikTok shop beverage in a few weeks, and then we rode that wave for a couple months. What's interesting is it was an effective channel. It wasn't the most profitable channel for us, but the halo effect it provided to sales on our website, based on post-purchase surveys, as well as the performance improvement that we saw on Meta with it running, were made it pretty obvious. A learning though there was we were kind of suggesting this idea of our brand from 2 different angles with 2 different products. So we had on the Meta side, we were promoting the THC product. On the TikTok shop, we were promoting the non. So there led to some confusion that I think led to some negative reviews on our Amazon or TikTok. People expecting the infused one and getting the non-infused, or people expecting the non-infused and getting the infused. So there was definitely some learnings there. But we moved quickly, and that was definitely a major aspect to our growth cycle and getting through these different stages of scaling. So there was that.
Is there an equivalent that you could share around what did TikTok for the purpose of driving awareness and just people knowing about the product and it exists and what it does? Is there an equivalent you've seen for that? Is it the equivalent of celebrities talking about it every day, or because
early influencer marketing?
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the best. First of all, I think it's the cheapest way to drive awareness if you understand the context of the platform. But a lot of people still neglect it because they find like, oh no, it's just good for it's just for kids basically.
Yeah, I don't think that's true anymore at all. Like the user base of TikTok is so wide and diverse, and I think for the last like even 5 years plus, they've been investing heavily to make it not a kids platform, to make it so I found like user base wise, like there was a huge range of people, same as Meta, same as anywhere. So that's one. Two is I think that people don't really understand the algorithm of TikTok, especially when you come through the lens of Meta. Like Meta's algorithm is just a different beast than the TikTok algorithm. In fact, TikTok, the way I think about, something I heard about TikTok early on was that like ad creatives, they rot so quickly. Like you can only run a creative for so long before it. And so the question I asked myself is like, why is that? And I think what's actually happening is I think the algorithm is so good when you have something worth sharing, it gets it to the right people immediately, like very, very quickly. And so you have to be able to like make something worth saying, or like something worth telling people that once they see it, they'll actually grab onto it. So, I don't know the best comparison. For us, it was like, I had tried doing some influencer stuff in the past, and that was somewhat successful. There's a few other brands that did that approach, and they were very successful with it. I tried to do some ad creatives and direct response ads in the past, and I never really found much success with that. But then when TikTok Shop came, you got to integrate both. You had all these micro influencers that were making content at scale, and then with Spark ads, you could amplify their ads similar to whitelisting on Meta. And because they were driving sales, we could keep dumping money in it, and it was just a clear attribution cycle than was previously available with direct advertising from TikTok and pixeling that traffic on your website. So I just followed the numbers in that regard, and I just like we scaled our affiliates radically fast. I mean, at one point we were sending I don't know, 500 to 1,000 products a week to new creators. And I don't think that this game changes so much that some of these strategies I'm saying I wouldn't repeat exactly like I did then, because they're kind of different now. But that's what we did. We dumped into it. What it felt like is early influencer marketing days in like 2015, 2016 is what it felt like. If you could get enough product to the right people, with the delta being that you didn't really need to focus so much on the creators following, you needed to focus on the creators' quality of content and just amplifying that through ads as successfully as you could. So that'd probably be the most comparable. Today, while we're on it, I think that game's changed today. I think how that game works today is you need to create a strong group of creators who are indoctrinated to your product, that really understand it and are willing to pump out a lot of content frequently and with depth and clarity and variety of angles, and then amplify that, and then just reward those creators at scale ongoing. I feel like that's how you succeed with TikTok Shop today. I do think there's a ton of opportunity in that channel that is super undervalued, but it's challenging, especially whenever one of the brothers giving away cars to onboard creators to make ads for them. So yeah, that was I think the other thing is like I have really good friends in this space, like whether it's you or whether it's or Nick's friends or my we just like a lot of the some of the best people in e-com are just like they're friends of mine. So it's like if they see something coming or if I hear about them talking about something, it's easy for us to jump in there and test it quickly. We also have really smart people on the team that have been in the game a long time and so know how to play and test things pretty quickly. So AppLovin was another example there. As we saw people were starting to make a lot of money off of AppLovin. It was seemingly working, and so we just leaned in quickly. I also think because THC and cannabis are kind of a restricted category, you have to be careful on what you say and how you say it on different channels. AppLovin didn't have any of those restrictions, so we were able to come in and say cannabis. We were able to say THC. So even though maybe 5 other brands came out at the same time promoting whatever they were promoting, which might be more run of the mill, we were coming in and showing THC beverages to a whole new subset of audience directly and clearly that never had saw online ads for that kind of thing before. So I think that gave us a little bit of a competitive advantage that allowed us to see outsized returns that others weren't seeing. And then on the flip side, I built it to be an e-commerce brand. We have high unit economics. We were getting massive subscription opt-in. The LTV on those subscribers were strong, so we could win those auctions that other people couldn't win, knowing that it was going to be profitable for us. So I think that's how we were kind of in there. And we still kind of just do that today. It's like we're very like tapped into the community, and even as the brand scales, I never really want to be too far away from that community. Even if we, I have a lot of confidence that BRÉZ is going to be a multi-billion-dollar brand in a very, very soon. But I think like that root of that community that we came from, I think that's only going to get that industry is only going to become more powerful, and I want to add value to it and learn from it to apply that to BRÉZ. And I think that that's going to be a huge competitive advantage to us long term.
Amazing. I want to go through some rapid-ish fire questions here for our last part here. So just knowing what you've known now, you spoke a little bit to unit economics, developing a really, really stellar product, something that makes somebody go, wow, and want to talk about it immediately. What are some, or maybe the biggest red flag you see when founders are pitching you a new product that they want to bring to market, and you're just like, it's not going to work because of X, or most of these pitches, they leave out thinking about X.
Yeah. I don't think most people think big enough, fundamentally. There's you have to, the era of launching a product and D2C-ifying it is over. Like we don't need any more dog pillow companies. We don't need any more razors or kitchens, pans. Like there's not room for that. There's room for real innovation that makes humans' lives radically better and could make a global or at least national difference. So I think most brands don't think about a big enough problem to solve. They don't apply enough innovation to actually solve that problem, and then they don't actually apply the fundamentals of whatever their go-to-market strategy is to be successful. So what I'm looking for when I'm working with other entrepreneurs or investing in a startup or something is those things. It's like, are you playing to your hand, like to your skills? Do you have a channel and a matrix and a system that is uniquely your own that you can play to better than other people can? And that's kind of what we had with the e-com and the bev side, both on the experience of how to advertise these things, the experience of e-com, and then the personal affinity to knowledge of the product and the impact it can make long term. So that, and then like, do you have a big enough vision for the world and how your product integrates into it long term? And I think, like when you go through tech cycles, technology integration into a product becomes enough of a difference or improvement for you to find success in the early days. So whether that was the .com bubble or the first social media companies or the first D2C brands, like tech is enough to kind of get you in. But when you get to the end of those cycles, it's not. It really becomes about where's the true innovation underlying it if tech was equalized. And I think that the majority of e-com brands just don't even know what the concept of innovation is. And so I'm really like, I hope that that's what other e-com founders in the space see with BRÉZ, is like, we saw something big and we innovated towards it. It doesn't have to be like it's a hard innovation necessarily to accomplish, but it needs to be proper innovation. It has to be an iteration of existence. It has to be furthering beyond what's possible and inviting people to be part of that story. So I think that's the key. And we were just mentioning about the brand and the attract. I like that quote. It's like, people don't remember you; they remember how you made them feel. I take that very to heart with my product and brand. Like, obviously, it makes you feel something when you drink it, so that's an aspect. But the goal was with BRÉZ initially is like, I wanted, if you saw that product, you would forever wonder what that was until you had tried it. Like it was so compelling. It almost made, I even look at it now and I feel something when I look at it. It feels desirable. It feels interesting. It feels mysterious and it feels exciting. And I think that plays off of our human desire for more, for our human desire for expansion. And so, I'm trying to tap into that with the brand. And I think the product actually follows through and delivers on that, which then that's like the holy grail of opportunity, is if you can create desire for something that is more, that is a better idea of where I could be, and then you can actually land on that, you can actually deliver on that promise, then you build trust and authority. And that's where I think you can really snowball success.
Yeah, I also think one thing that you did really well with BRÉZ is a brand and a product that is very desirable. It doesn't feel like it's easily attainable, but it does not feel like it's a hard thing to go and attain. Like, it's very accessible,
for sure.
But it also is in a higher category than, just normal.
Totally. I think so too.
Which is a very hard balance to find, but it drives it obviously drives a lot of like word of mouth and everything.
Well, I think I saw in CBD too, is like that whole CBD cycle. It was first to market, did really well, and then it got really saturated and everyone was selling a commodity, and then it was a price game. Everyone was racing to the bottom. I knew fundamentally when I started BRÉZ that I don't want to do that. I don't want to play a price game. I don't want to be in the game of commodities. I want to create premier, desirable experiences that people are willing to pay for because they're going to hold that value inherent. And so I knew that getting into it. And, a way I used to say that, and I kind of still say it today, is people don't want budget drugs. No one's looking and I want the cheap shit. It's I'm putting this in my body. I'm looking for a better way to feel better. I don't want the cheap stuff. I want the good stuff. And now it should still be at a price that you can integrate into your life long term, so you have a more viable and larger business. But I don't think it's about the cheap stuff. The clearest example is this is alcohol. Alcohol, everyone's really selling the drug of ethanol. This is the active ingredient that goes into all alcohol, no matter if you're drinking the nicest wine, the nicest whiskey, or the shittiest beer. It's all ethanol at the end of the day. So, and if alcohol was able to create such a landscape of products and prices with large businesses at every level of it, all selling the same compound, I knew if we were actually selling a mixture of really high quality compounds that were actually different, price won't be the concern. It will be whether or not the value contained in the product could deliver on the value we were commanding. And I think it over delivers probably at a 10x rate to this day.
Yeah, I agree. What about, is there something, an insight you learned at the agency as you were building that, very different business, different unit economics that you brought over to BRÉZ that you think a lot of other people should do, or that you would recommend to somebody else starting a business?
I think, one of the things I learned very quickly at Lucid over that tenure, first off, is that agency is a really great way to make some money if you want to start an e-commerce brand. I would not start an e-commerce brand with no money. That was one of the hard lessons I learned post-Monk before Lucid was it takes money, no matter who you are or how efficient or how creative or how many, unique deal, come up with some cash. And if you need to go eat, if you want to be a serial entrepreneur, you never want to work a day in your life, cool. If you need to work for a 6-month period in order to have the capital to go do that, then do that. Think enough as a CEO, think enough as an owner of your own existence that you can play segmented opportunities to create resources for longer term opportunities. I think that was something I was so fearful of pre-agency that if I get back into the mix of doing an agency, or if I get back in the mix of working a job, I'll be stuck. You'll only be stuck if you allow yourself to be stuck. Instead, think creatively of can I acquire resources that allow me to really fulfill my long-term vision? And so I learned that at Lucid, and right before Lucid. I also learned at Lucid is and so then at the agency was a good way to make money, but it's a very tough business to be involved in long term. It's very time demanding. It's very resource demanding. You could do the best work of your life, and the next day it's well, what now? So it becomes a what have you done for me lately business. And so I thankfully I have a really awesome partner who really specializes in agency. He's now the CEO of Lucid and runs it full time. But so that was learning what you need to do at different times in order to create the resources for later, and learning what you actually want to do over time. I think the last thing I learned more strategically was it goes back to what I was saying earlier about innovation and building for the fundamentals. I saw so many brands come through Lucid, and I saw some that were really well built to be successful in e-com, and they thrived. I saw brands that were just not prepared, and no matter what they would try, if they didn't fix the fundamentals, it wouldn't work. But then regardless if they had the fundamentals right or they didn't have the fundamentals right, do they have a product that has a long-term staying power, that's innovative and novel enough to make that first conversion, to be compelling to for people who would want to actually buy it and then integrate it long term. So it was a series of things. I find no matter what level of success I've achieved, it's never really one thing. It's the combination of a bunch of variables all locking in at the right time in the right way, and then your ability to execute on it, whenever those variables do line up.
Yeah, amazing. Aaron, where can people find you?
Yeah. So you can find BRÉZ at drinkbreeze.com. BRÉZ is BREZ. You can find me on social at Aaron, AARON, J, NOSBISCH, Aaron J. Nosbisch.
Amazing. Dude, thank you for coming. We're going to have to do a part 2 because we got through 4 questions, and right. I've got a whole page of stuff here. So we'll do a part 2 at some point soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me on, dude.
Amazing. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise on CPG, retail, and e-commerce. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss the next one.